If you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, Grainger understands that you go to great lengths and sometimes heights to ensure the power is always flowing, which is why you can count on Grainger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so you have everything you need to get the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Faith, spiritual values, moral issues, government, economy, education, work, responsibility. What we think about these depends on our worldview. Now, VCY America presents Worldview Radio with Brannon House.
And welcome. Glad you are with us on this June 3rd, 2025. I want to talk about Peter Thiel. I called a pastor friend of mine today. I said, "Are you familiar with Peter Thiel?" He said, "No." So I told him who Peter was. I said, "Peter has a fascination with the Antichrist and Armageddon." Do you know who Peter Thiel is? I think a lot of you do. We've talked about him here. He is one of the co-founders at one time of Facebook and PayPal. And he's one of the big tech bros. He is working closely with the Trump administration. I think he has greatly brought along, maybe even the word mentored is appropriate, J.D. Vance, helped J.D. Vance become a U.S. Senator, many say. Maybe helped him become vice president. Peter Thiel. So, what's very interesting is you can read about this guy, you can listen to people talk about this guy, and in doing so, you start to, throw him into a box. And you think, oh, he's probably like all those other tech bros, right? And you pretty quickly start making him out to be some kind of villain. But if you watch his interviews, particularly when he's discussing religion, all of a sudden, the caricature that we might throw him into is shattered. Because he's sitting there and he's talking about his interest in Christianity. He's talking about his interest in the book of Revelation. He talks about his opposition to a one world government, his opposition to global governance. And he likes to talk about the rise of the Antichrist. He likes to talk about the options being the Antichrist or Armageddon. The Antichrist or Armageddon. Those aren't very good choices, he says. Then there's the option of the end of the world through an apocalyptic event, whether that's nuclear war or AI getting out of control, destroying everything. The end of the world in an apocalyptic event, or a one world. There's another Hegelian dialectic conflict. Thesis and antithesis. Idea, opposite idea. The end of the world, or one world. We all come together under global governance. He said these are the options that are often thrown out there. The Antichrist, a world leader who rises to bring things together and stop Armageddon, Antichrist, or Armageddon. The end of the world, or we go to a one world system. He says, but wait a minute. What if there is a third option? Now, I'm sitting up and I'm paying attention. Because you guys know for a few decades now, I've been talking about the idea of third way. Thesis, antithesis, idea, opposite idea. But how could they come together and produce a third option, a third way? How do you do that? How do you create a third way between the Antichrist and Armageddon? Now, he doesn't fully flesh it out in his interviews that I've watched yet, and I'm going to be watching more. And to what may be a shock to some of you, and maybe even to my friend Patrick. I'll see when Patrick joins us here in a minute. I turned to Logan today. I said, find this guy. Find his number. Find his office. I want to interview Peter Thiel. I want to interview Peter Thiel as a Christian worldview proponent, one that understands the 6 dominant worldviews that rule the world. Because guess what? Peter Thiel has given interviews saying, well, what's the choice going to be? Marxism? Communism? Islam? He's talking about some of these 6 dominant worldviews. Christianity? And he's saying we have to find a third way. Wow. Turns out he's, I guess, a libertarian. And again, we're always adding new people to the show. What's a libertarian? Well, they believe really in limited government, very small government, which I'm for. But there also tend libertarians to not want to have much constraint by government in areas where I would like to see government, such as capital punishment, laws that stop things like abortion, same-sex marriage, these kind of things, right? That's the traditional conservative Christian worldview perspective. The purpose of government is to reward righteous, punish wicked, make a stable and just society. So family government, civil government, and church government, 3 distinct institutions and spheres created by God, can go about their way, complementing each other without stepping all over each other, working really in harmony as institutions created by God. Well, libertarians don't really want to do too much when it comes to the issue of, obviously, abortion, same-sex marriage. Some of them, there are varying stripes of libertarians, but he seems to be a libertarian. Now, the question is he really a libertarian? That's what I'd like to ask him. Because if you go and you read my book, Marxianity, came out in 2018, and you don't need to buy any of my 16, 17 books. They're all in my vault at worldviewtube.com/vault. You'll find them all there as PDFs, and you can read them all. You don't need to go buy them. worldviewtube.com/vault if you're interested. But if you go to my 2018 book, Marxianity, you'll know that I talk about a Catholic priest that runs the Acton Institute. And this guy claims to be a libertarian. Sirico. He claims to be a libertarian. But as you delve into him more and more, and he's loved by a lot of so-called conservatives. But as you delve into what he really believes, as I did in my book, Marxianity, you find out he's not really, he's Catholic. I guess he was a Catholic priest at one time. I don't know, maybe he still is. I have to go back and check again. But he was at one time a Catholic priest. But as you study him, you find out real quick, he's not a libertarian. He's a communitarian. He believes in big government and big business merging together. He believes in a third way, a third option, which is really big government, big business working together for some kind of utopian society. Now, when it comes to Peter Thiel, he's very concerned about the rise of an antichrist figure. He's very concerned about the rise of violence and chaos. He's very concerned about the idea of a authoritarian globalist system. I'm like, yeah, I can agree with you on that. And he is very friendly to Christianity in general. But does he really understand Christianity? He was supposedly raised in an evangelical home. He was even in one interview I will be playing tonight on Brain House Live extensively. He starts quoting scripture for what he sees coming. He is very interested in Bible prophecy. Now, does he believe in a literal antichrist? Or does he believe in the concept of an Antichrist system? So try to think about this from his perspective. If I've done a pretty good job of laying out a little bit of his worldview, I'm not saying I agree with it, all of his worldview, that's for sure. But if I'm laying out a little bit of his worldview, what would a world system look like if you're trying to avoid Antichrist, a world system, or an individual or a world system that represents the Antichrist that is going to mimic and mock and monitor everything? And the alternative is the world spinning out of control and going to Armageddon. What would you do? What would you offer up? Well, from a technocratic standpoint, I would think he would say, we need something where we have checks and balances, and we use AI, but we put guardrails up, and we use these guardrails to make sure AI doesn't run out of control, and that we don't have an Antichrist figure or system, and we don't have Armageddon, but we use this to keep everybody in check. Didn't we have one guy talk about how AI will make people be on their best behavior? Peter Thiel also seems to have a concern about dying. He seems to have a concern about death and the need to live a long time, which is very consistent with transhumanism. So this guy is not your typical tech bro. He likes to do interviews, apparently. He likes to talk about philosophy and ideas and spirituality. He says that he is religious, not spiritual. Now that's interesting because most of your young people and others today will say, well, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. They don't want any dogma of a religious structure. They just want to make it up as they go. A spirituality that's very fluid. No doctrine, no basis for which they would quote their ideas. I'm spiritual, not religious. He says, I'm religious, not spiritual. Interesting. And this might explain why he quotes the Bible, why he's studying Revelation. He's getting his concepts and ideas partly from the Bible, but like most people, he's building his own worldview. And he's taking planks from my worldview, biblical Christianity, to build his own worldview, Peter Thiel's worldview. You'll find articles out there about him in which he is openly talking about Christianity. Here's one from Vanity Fair. This was March 20th, 2025. Christianity was borderline illegal in Silicon Valley. Now it's the new religion. There are people that are leveraging Christianity to get closer to Peter Thiel. Now, isn't that interesting? Here's what I would say. Peter, look me up. You can find out all about me. I'm not leveraging Christianity. I'm not using Christianity. This is what I believe and have believed for so many decades. But I would like to sit down and have a conversation with you. You seem like a very interesting individual, and you seem very transparent in some of the things you're saying. I think we could have a very good conversation. Don't go away. We're not changing courses now. We are who we are. We're committed to the truth that we are committed to. Worldview Tube is a broadcast network that I started in 2006, but it's based on my 35 years as an author and speaker and commentator. Worldview Tube is here to defend the truth of a Christian worldview. And we believe we can apply it to all areas of life, like law, science, economics, history, family, social issues, education, religion, major issues.
At worldviewtube.com, we provide news from around the globe that isn't typically covered by mainstream media. Visit worldviewtube.com to watch our experts and analysts discuss all your favorite topics on our 24/7 live stream. Explore our extensive collection of unfiltered and uncensored content from 35 years of production. Go to worldviewtube.com today. Also find us on all of these major platforms and download our Worldview Tube mobile app.
All right. So, what's also interesting is you don't usually see the tech bros talking about the Antichrist, Armageddon, one world government. You also don't hear them talking about Calvinism. And he listed off the TULIP, T-U-L-I-P, TULIP, the acronym for the Calvinist doctrines. He listed them off the top of his head in an interview and why he doesn't believe in that. And I'm thinking to myself, the more I watched him, the more I'm like fascinated. Not in a sense of fascination as in I agree with everything he's saying, but I don't think I've ever seen an individual like this coming out of the tech industry who I could actually have a conversation with. We could actually go back and forth and talk about worldview, philosophy, ideas, Christianity. And I would like to flesh out, what does this guy really believe? I'd like to ask him about, well, wait a minute now. You've come from a Christian background, it sounds like, an evangelical family, it sounds like. What do you make of the person of Jesus Christ? Who do you say Jesus is? I think we could have a very interesting conversation. He talks about original sin. He talks about the depravity of man. Again, I don't think you're ever going to find one of these tech bros that talks the way this guy does. Very interesting, but also very concerning. Joining me now is Patrick Wood. Patrick, welcome to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
What do you make of my opening monologue today? I've been studying this guy and listening to quite a bit. What do you make of this?
I have been studying as well. He's a complex individual for sure.
Yes, he is.
He's really unplugged, I think, on his view of Christianity. I listened again for the second time, the interview that you sent me that he did with the Hoover Institution at Stanford. And it was kind of a wild interview, covered a lot of topics. However, all of the talk about Christianity and the Antichrist being the central figure, he's focused on the Antichrist. I listened again to this whole interview, never mentions Christ once.
Nope.
Not once.
Nope.
So this, on one hand...
Which is why you just heard me say, I want to ask him, who do you say Jesus is, Peter? Who's Jesus? Right?
Well, yeah, exactly. You know, he quoted 1 Thessalonians 5:3 in particular. He said, the quote, this is a quote that the interviewer gave him, repeated back to him. He said, the Antichrist will talk about Armageddon all the time. He'll scare people, then offer to save them, right? Then Peter Thiel immediately shot back with 1 Thessalonians 5:3, which says, I'll read it here, for when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and there shall be no escape. Okay, this is not the Antichrist speaking here. One thing. So he's misquoting the scripture.
Yes. And
he wants us to think, well, the Antichrist is talking about peace and safety. No, he is not at all. But you know, this kind of misapplication of scripture is all through this interview, which leads me to think he doesn't have a clue what Christianity is all about. He won't mention the name Christ, and he won't mention God, and the certain judgment that's going to come on the world because of God's sovereignty. None of that. There's no mention of that at all. So in one sense, you could say, well, this whole thing is a psyop to draw Christians into his worldview subtly, and maybe on the other hand, maybe he really believes this stuff. Maybe he's just encased in his own bubble, and he doesn't want to talk about Christ. He doesn't want to talk about God's judgment. But there you go.
Well, there you go. But it is interesting. I don't know how much he knows about the horsemen of the apocalypse, but you've got a false peace coming with the Antichrist, and then you've got war, and we just keep going down the path here. But I think you nailed it. I mean, this guy, that's why I want to interview him. I want to find out, do you really know about biblical Christianity? And again,
yes.
Who do you say Jesus is, Peter? I mean, let's talk about Jesus. Let's talk about the resurrection. Let's talk about the evidence for the resurrection. Let's talk about the authenticity and veracity of the Old Testament and the New Testament. We know it's true. We know it's true from many things. 24,000 plus and partial manuscripts of the New Testament. Not one of them contradicts a major doctrine. There's hardly a half a page worth of any differences in those manuscripts, the copy of the original, and none of them involve any major doctrines. We know we have the historical test, the bibliographical test, the internal test, the external test. We can go all through these apologetic tools and say, look, the veracity and authenticity of the Bible has been proven over and over, which is why so many skeptics and critics and atheists have become Christians, right? So we can talk about the messianic prophecies, how they were predicted. Everybody knows the book of Daniel was written about 800 years before these things came to pass. You cannot escape that. This is a matter of anybody that's an expert in antiquities. So we have to prove Jesus was God, because who else predicts all of these things about yourself? These 300 messianic prophecies that he fulfilled down to every one of them. 109 of them specifically related to him. And again, who you say Jesus is? This guy, what do you know about his upbringing? What do you know?
I haven't discovered anything in particular. He might have had some exposure to the gospel, possibly along the way, but he recently converted to Catholicism. This was not his lifelong religion. I was raised Catholic, by the way. I got out of it when I was a teenager, but he might have had some exposure some along the way, but he's not a lifelong Catholic for sure. Mm-hmm. So he made a conscious decision to join the Catholic movement. But what he's picked up along the way, it just makes no sense. Even by Catholic standards, it doesn't make any sense to me. But at least he put on a necktie and a coat. That's not his normal apparel. He says on one hand he doesn't trust world government to bring about anything good. But on the other hand, he talks about the concept of sovereign corporations who will kind of be in charge of everything, perhaps, and use AI to corral everybody else. Well, he's talking out of both sides of his mouth. If he's concerned about the Antichrist, then why is he promoting Antichrist theories? And he can't reconcile that. At least I can't. He's talking out of both sides of his mouth.
And I've read articles about him that say that if you could crack open his head and look into his mind, you would find diametrically opposing opinions in his brain. And it made me think of the Bible verse, a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways.
Yeah.
So no wonder he's floundering about, throwing out this religious talk that contradicts itself. Part of me watched these interviews and just thought, I just want to have the opportunity to explain the gospel to him, number one.
Yes.
And see what he would do with that. And number two, I felt sorry for him. He does seem to be on some kind of spiritual quest, does he not?
A little bit. Yeah. But it's hard to reconcile his spiritual views with his practice in life.
Mm-hmm. Which he's an open homosexual, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. He's also one of those people who has Asperger's syndrome as well. But
he does.
He says that himself.
He does.
That's not. Yeah. But he's obviously a genius. He's done all these things in his life. He was the first outside investor in PayPal. Mm-hmm. He co-founded PayPal with, Facebook. First outside investor in Facebook. He co-founded PayPal with Elon Musk. They go way, way back.
Are they still friends? Are they still friends?
They're cordial, for sure.
I guess he was also funded things like Airbnb.
Yes.
LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to name some of the companies people would recognize. A lot of them you just wouldn't even know what they are.
Well,
Spotify, Yelp. We all recognize those.
Yes.
And of course, SpaceX.
Mm-hmm. Yes. We need to remember also that Peter Thiel is intimately connected to the Bilderberg Group in Europe. This is huge. That's just one other layer, I think, on his life. But he is a member of the steering committee of the Bilderberg Group, as well as the CEO of Palantir, Alex Karp. So they're both on the steering committee of the Bilderberg Group. This is a major old line, not a think tank, but it's a discussion group among globalist interest dating back before 1970.
Here's this article in Vanity Fair. The article in Vanity Fair. Christianity was borderline illegal in Silicon Valley. Now it's the new religion. Believers like Gary Tan are flipping the script in the venture capital world, making faith matter just as much as the ability to turn a fortune. Says one entrepreneur, there are people that are leveraging Christianity to get close to Peter Thiel, end quote. The article starts out, it's mid-October in San Francisco, and a crowd of 200 or so congregants, some seated in pews, others standing below cathedral windows at the back, bow their heads in prayer. Over cranberry apple cosmos and plates of Burmese food served by black-shirted waiters, a DJ plays a thumping soundtrack of remixed worship music. This is not a church service or even a Bible study. It is instead an entirely new kind of event in Silicon Valley. We're here to listen on a conversation between Dr. Francis Collins, the former director of National Institutes of Health, and the leader of the Human Genome Project, and Gary Tan, the president and CEO of Silicon Valley's influential startup incubator, Y Combinator, which has hatched thousands of tech companies, which combine valuation of more than $600 billion. Well, let's just stop there with Francis Collins. When we come back, we'll tell you more about him because he's been big in biologos, right?
Yes.
Francis Collins, biologos. The Bible tells us that there's going to be an apostasy, a falling away from traditionally held biblical truths. And there's going to be a new religion. And Revelation 17, verse 1 starts out talking about the woman that sits on many waters, the harlot, actually, that sits on many waters. I think that's the one world church. Are these guys helping to build a one world church for the Antichrist? We'll be right back. Hello, I'm Brandon House. Hey, consider going to mypillow.com right now and get your pet a pet bed, just like my beloved Delta has right here in my office. Not only can you get pet beds, but you can get sheets, towels, blankets, and so much more. Slippers, sandals, robes, beach towels. It just goes on and on. But please go to mypillow.com and be sure to use the promo code B66. When you do, not only will you receive savings, but a generous percentage of each purchase comes back to continue supporting this 24/7 free broadcast outlet. We need your support. Hey, look, we're entrepreneurs, just like my friend Mike Lindell. We all need your support, and you're getting quality products at the same time. So please go to mypillow.com and use the promo code B66. Mike always has amazing specials going right there at MyPillow. So check out whatever those specials might be today. You never know. Mike's always changing it up and making new offers right there at mypillow.com. But be sure to use the promo code B66. This Worldview Radio, our website, worldviewradio.com. Now, don't forget, Francis Collins, who is so big behind the COVID shot in NIH, was one of the founders of BioLogos. Again, folks, we're going back nearly 20 years now. When I began warning about BioLogos and the promotion by Tim Keller, who I think is a neo-Marxist. He's heavily in my book, Marxianity, that was promoting and writing for BioLogos, the idea that God used evolution. That's Francis Collins. So Francis Collins, according to this article in Vanity Fair, is holding this meeting, and these people are picking up on so-called Christianity. Joining me again is Patrick Wood of technocracy.news, technocracy.news. So BioLogos, this idea that God used evolution to create. That's Francis Collins. Most of us remember him out of NIH and Dr. Fauci, right?
Yes, exactly. And he was an unplugged representative of Christianity for sure. Everything that I heard him say just didn't ring at all true to me. Right. You know, he just would twist stuff just enough to get away with it. But then you realize in the end, there's a nothing burger coming out of his mouth. This is very deceptive, especially for Christians. And I'm sure a lot of Christians just kind of saw through him in the first place. But he's very deceptive. And if you listen to him without some discernment, you'll be sucked in to what he said.
To Francis Collins, absolutely.
Francis, yeah, exactly. Yep.
So the article in Vanity goes on to say that, talking about Peter Thiel, that Trey Stevens, co-founder of the defense tech company, and other people, and Peter Thiel are, into this new faith in Silicon Valley. Stevens, like Tan, has lately been speaking publicly about his faith in the context of Silicon Valley. He hosted a Bible study reflecting on the teachings of René Girard, a French philosopher popular in certain libertarian-leaning tech circles. Spoken at his church about the connection between Christianity and innovation, and what seems a slightly contorted interpretation of the Gospels, about how basic venture investing principles are an exemplar of divine forgiveness. This René Girard, I think from reading about him, he is a Catholic philosopher, right?
I think so. Yeah.
And so clearly, Peter Thiel is going down this road. What it says, you don't need to do much guesswork to see why smart Christians in Silicon Valley are growing more emboldened. After all, there are billionaires among their ranks. One of them is Peter Thiel, who has spoken about his evangelical leanings for more than a decade, and who has lately shared his views on his faith with increasing frequency. Quote, I believe in the resurrection of Christ, he said in a 2020 talk. The only good role model for us is Christ. In watching talk after talk of Thiel speaking about his faith, I found myself genuinely puzzled. Not because Thiel lacks conviction, but because his thoughts on the subject are so galaxy-brained that it seems like he's playing a game of 3D chess that has the rest of us only catching up to, quote, when you don't have a transcendent religious belief, you end up just looking around at other people, and that's the problem with our atheist liberal world. It's just the madness of crowds, end quote. And it's not only Thiel. Last summer, in an interview with Jordan Peterson, Elon Musk described himself cautiously as a cultural Christian. Okay, let me tell you something. Secular humanism is dead. I know some of the pro-family groups don't know that, and they're still telling you how they're fighting secular humanism, which one of them down in Mississippi always wants to tell you about how horrific secular humanism is to the culture. I'm like, you guys are so behind the times. You know, the 1960s are calling. They don't have a clue about transhumanism. You know, they're running around with false prophets and apostles. So don't think they're too discerning. Okay, but they want to tell you about secular humanism. It's not secular humanism. It's cosmic humanism. It's the new age. Okay, and in come these guys, I think, mixing a lot of mysticism with Christianity, which is going to confuse the living daylights out of a lot of people. And I think they're helping to build that harlot that sits on many waters, the one world church, Patrick.
I do. I would agree with you 100%. This the concept of melding, especially Catholic doctrine, into their New Age ideas about the noosphere, the global think. This is a totally mystical approach to the view of the world. This has nothing to do with the Bible, in my opinion, but it has that appearance. And I have to say, historically, the technocrats never wanted anything to do with Christianity or, for that matter, any other religion as well. They said they were all atheists, and they practiced kind of, a secular atheism, if you will. But now the trap is being set for Christianity to be brought into the whole mix. This was not there even 10, 15 years ago, but they've made it an issue now. And that speaks volume to me. Why don't they talk about Buddhism? That's big in Silicon Valley, by the way. Why don't they talk about Hinduism? That's also big in Silicon Valley. But no, they're talking about Christianity in faux terms to draw people into thinking about Christianity, at least in a negative way.
Well, this article in Vogue says that Peter Thiel is a gay billionaire. And he went to this Acts 17 event and spoke at length about his relationship with Jesus Christ. Okay, again, this is what I want to know more about. Who does he say Jesus is? Because I want to know if this is he's got to have some kind of new age, Jesus, right? Let's see what we got here. Quote, these highlight that Christianity doesn't have to look a certain way, he said. Quote, the Jesus we know isn't the Jesus of religion. He's the Jesus of the people, for the people. Honest Christianity, despite what you may have learned or heard, is a radically inclusive faith, end quote. Well, there you go. He's wrong. Christianity is not inclusive in that you just bring whatever you want to the table. Jesus said you have to die to yourself, pick up your cross, right? He didn't say just bring your garbage with you and your lifestyle and everything else. Come on, come join the club.
Yeah.
He didn't say there are many ways. There's only one way. There's a narrow way. So, in fact, in that interview that I sent you, Peter Thiel says that you can look at things the way God does only, but I would suggest we look at things not only the way God does, so that we look at them in a human way with human free will and free agency. Wait a minute. Why would anyone suggest you look at anything not the way God does, right? So I'm going to go out here and say Peter Thiel, I believe, has a God and a Jesus of his own making. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. Exactly. Yeah.
But isn't it interesting, as you say, he picks up on Christianity, not Hinduism, not Buddha. Why are they doing this, right? Is this going to be used to get many Americans who identify as, quote, Christians, right? Many, I mean, Elon Musk identifying as, a cultural Christian. A lot of people identify as a cultural Christian, but they don't really have a faith in the Jesus of the Bible, right? But is this being done, you think, in order to cause many people to trust him and where he's going to take us as a nation and a world? Is this all deception? Or is he deceived? Is he being authentic, but himself is deceived and being used and doesn't know it?
Exactly. He's obviously, he is deceived, major, but this is appealing to basically one group of people, certainly not the Calvinists. He hates Calvinists. He said that. It's not the evangelicals, because he doesn't like them either. He's only appealing to the Catholic Church.
And he doesn't like Islam either. He made that clear.
That's right. That's right. He doesn't like that. But he's pandering to the Catholic Church in particular. Why would that be? When you see this imagery of the woman riding the beast in Revelation, this image of the Catholic Church just hits you like a ton of bricks. At least it did to me when I, considering my background in the Catholic Church when I was young. Why is he promoting that concept versus other concepts that would fit better with what they're trying to do, like Buddhism? Buddhism is very popular in Silicon Valley, has been for years. It fits what they're doing.
And the Catholic Church talks a lot about the Antichrist. Yes.
But
and in this article,
but not about Christ.
No, right. So, in this article, it says at Vanity Fair last month, Thiel spoke about the coming of the Antichrist. His primary example is social media, which he told me over the phone engenders the postmodernist values of fighting over identity and representation. Everyone on social media is going through an identity crisis and some kind of disinformation campaign. That's not a bug. That's a feature of postmodern design. See, this is very interesting again. He doesn't like postmodernism. That's very clear, right? He doesn't like it.
Yes.
I mean, he doesn't like Islam. I don't like Islam. He doesn't like communism. I don't like communism. He doesn't like postmodernism. I don't like postmodernism. He's not for the Antichrist. I'm not for the Antichrist. I mean, when you start checking his boxes off, you're like, okay, this is interesting. But does he really understand what these things are? Because I'm not so sure he believes in a literal Antichrist figure. I think he's more concerned about an Antichrist system.
Yes.
And he's going to use his system to overcome that system. It's a battle of systems. Would that be fair?
Yes, he said that in this interview that you sent me. He said specifically that the United States could be the Antichrist.
Yes.
As a system.
Yep.
The narrator kind of challenged him on that. What do you mean? What do you mean? After all that talk about the Antichrist, Peter Thiel kind of slaps him with the concept, well, it could be the United States. It kind of shocked the interviewer, I think. But yes, he's fully on board with not a literal representation of an Antichrist, but rather it could be a system.
And at the end of the day, that seems what they're doing. This is a battle of systems. It's not a battle of worldviews. It's not a battle of religion. At the end of the day, this is going to be a battle for systems, which in itself is a form of humanism, not secular humanism per se. It's all the humanisms, secular humanism, cosmic humanism. It's the idea that if we just set the right environment, put in the right system, we can have heaven on earth and we can live a long time. Phone lines open, 1-800-347-9829, 1-800-347-9829. Hello, I'm Brandon House. Is the government tracking you? Do they have access to all your data? Well, if you go to worldviewtalk.com, you'll find out about a cell phone company that, well, does not store your data. They don't do that. This is what they're known for. They don't store your data. You have privacy. You're not being tracked. That's why a lot of folks are turning to worldviewtalk.com. You'll find their prices are very competitive. All the details are there at worldviewtalk.com. Again, worldviewtalk.com. Oh, while you're there, not only do they have cell phones that aren't tracking you, you can find out about how to get a satellite phone. Should the whole system go down and you want to communicate with a family member or a loved one, you might want to have a satellite phone. Or how about their solar generators? They have great solar generators. Check them all out right now. Worldviewtalk.com, worldviewtalk.com. 1-800-347-9829, 1-800-347-9829. Your thoughts, your comments, your questions. Very interesting because this Sunday night, 8 p.m. Central, worldviewtube.com, I start Revelation chapter 17, verse 1. Revelation chapter 17, verse 1, which I'm going to turn there very quickly, and then we're going to go to your phone lines. What do you think about this guy, Peter Thiel? What do you think about him using Scripture, although he did use it out of context? What do you think about him talking about the Antichrist? How do you think this is going to play for the average person, even the average so-called evangelical who really doesn't know what they believe? Revelation chapter 17, then one of the seven angels who had the seven bowls came and spoke with me, saying, "Come here and I will show you the judgment of the great harlot who sits on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth committed acts of immorality, and those who dwell on the earth were made drunk with the wine of her immorality." Then it says, "And he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast." So first we saw a woman, a harlot on many waters. I think that's a global false dominant church. Then we see a woman, Babylon, sitting on the beast, the Antichrist system. Are these guys building the one world, helping to build the one world global church? The great harlot the Antichrist uses to come to power. Interesting to me, real quick, Patrick of technocracy.news, that's his website, technocracy.news. He said the Antichrist will talk a lot about Armageddon. Well, he's talking a lot about Armageddon, right?
Honestly, I don't find anywhere in the Bible where the devil or the Antichrist talks about Armageddon.
That's exactly right. No, I don't.
It
happens in Revelation 19. The only place I see is the Antichrist, the false prophet, and Satan using demonic entities that look like frogs coming out of their mouth in Revelation 16 to deceive the world to gather in Israel to fight the battle of Armageddon. But I don't see where he's warning about Armageddon, and I got to come to power to stop Armageddon. The only time I see the Antichrist being about it is when he's trying to draw everybody to Israel to fight the second coming of the Lord. That's where I see it. So again, he is just building his own worldview with bits and pieces of Christianity, and then a lot of stuff he claims is in the Bible that's not even there. Let's see what our phone lines are saying today. Robert, line 1, thank you for calling in, Robert.
Well, good afternoon, brother. Hey, you know what? The word of God is true. Every man's a liar. This guy's a liar. He's a phony. And in 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 26, it says that they may be recovered themselves out of the snare of the devil, who are taken captive by the devil, him, at his will. The devil's using this fella, and it goes along with 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. You know, in this process, there's going to be signs, lying wonders, to the point that even the very elect could be deceived, but they aren't. Mainly because we have the Holy Spirit of God.
Exactly.
You know,
if it were possible.
Who discerns for us.
Yes, exactly. If it were. So the real believers won't be deceived by a false Christ. Absolutely. Thank you, Robert.
Right.
Line 2, Chris. Thanks for calling in, Chris. Your thoughts today?
Hey, I was just wondering if you guys have heard about this guy that's been on the internet. He's got a Arabic name. He's like 40-ish. He was born in Colorado. He's starting a cult. I don't know his name. He wears like this stocking cap. Have you guys heard about this fellow?
No, I have
born
not.
In Colorado in 1983.
Have you, Patrick?
I don't know who he's
All
talking
right,
about.
I'll look up and see. What's he saying, Chris? What is it he's saying?
Just a whole gobbledygook of he's just the most confused individual I've ever seen. He he says he's descended from Jesus, and it's
is he getting a following,
it's
Chris?
off the charts.
Is he getting a following?
Pardon me?
Is he getting a following?
Oh yeah, he's building a compound. He's building a compound, and I forget in what state. He's been kicked out of a couple countries already. So just Google the guy with the just put in there like the Antichrist with the stocking cap.
All right. And it'll
he
pop
wears
up.
this ridiculous stocking cap. He's got a reason for that too.
I'll check into that. Thank you, Chris.
All
John, line 3. John, thanks for calling in today, John.
Hi, Brendan. Thanks.
Hi. Yeah.
The Antichrist is, per Daniel 11, the king of the north. But, I would like to share a little bit of my testimony. A friend of mine, we were having a conversation, and I said, I believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. And he says, he is God. I wouldn't break bread with anybody who doesn't believe it. We were reconciled later, but it reminds me of 1 John 4:15, where it says, whosoever confesses that Jesus is the Son of God, God abides in him, and he in God.
Thank you, John. Let's go to Matt in South Dakota, line 1. Hi, Matt.
Hey, how are you?
Great, Matt. Thank you for calling in.
Thank you. Hey, number one, the United States has over 60 million abortions to atone for. So some of our policies are very anti-Christian. Break. Why did your guest leave the Catholic Church, please?
Okay. Patrick, why did you leave the Catholic Church?
Well, I had no understanding of anything when I was like 15 years old, but I understood the hypocrisy and I just couldn't take it anymore. And so I decided I'm going to leave the whole thing altogether.
What hypocrisy did you see that you didn't like?
Mostly the people my parents' age who were partying. They will getting drunk.
Get big parties.
Exactly. They were getting drunk and carousing on Saturday night, and then to see who would make it to church and the next day to sit in their pew. That just drove me crazy. And so, I just thought, this is not for me.
So it was not one particular doctrine then?
No. Had nothing to do with that.
Okay. Although I can tell you, Matt, I wish I had more time. I'm out of time. There's some music. But I can tell you this, Matt. There's a lot of people in a lot of churches, though, that do that aren't Catholic too, right? I mean, we got a lot of Baptist churches and Southern Baptist churches, and some of them can party really hard and make it to church on Sunday morning, right? But the reality is, I'm not building the one world religious system only on the Catholic Church, folks. Just so you know, I think there's going to be an ecumenicalism, and I think it'll be Jews and so-called Protestants and Catholics and Hindus and Buddhists. It's going to be a big ecumenical event coming. I'll tell you that. All right, take care. All right, joining me back is Patrick Wood. Patrick, I'm sure you agree with that, right? This is going to be a big ecumenical event, not just the Catholic Church, although I think they're going to play a major role. I think the Southern Baptist Convention will play a big role. I think they already are. I think they already are when you're promoting Freemasonry left and right.
Yes, exactly. However, I think the unifying factor here is going to be AI in the end.
Tell me why.
Because AI is moving closer to being God at this point, and it's being identified by people in Silicon Valley already as being the forerunner of God, at least. Maybe when ASI is on the stage, and you see it's taking the form of omniscience, for instance, all-knowing. is omnipresent because it's everywhere, is omnipotent because it can punish people and make people do what it wants them to do. It also claims immutality. I can't get that word out either, but it claims unchanging nature of AI. Of course, that's not true, but that's what they claim. And they also claim that it's self-existent. That means it exists outside time and space. Well, this is a natural thing, I think, to unify everybody under this concept of an idol. Obviously, the whole system of AI can pander to any religion that you want in the world. It can talk Buddhism, it can talk Hinduism, it can talk Christianity. It doesn't matter where you come from. You can talk Islam. It doesn't matter. You can have your umbrella. You can come under the umbrella of AI religion, and it's not necessarily Christian at all.
What's interesting is that Thiel is so concerned about the Antichrist, and yet I think he's helping to build the system with Palantir that will be used by the Antichrist.
Yes, exactly so. This is the hypocrisy of the whole thing.
And this is what I'd like to ask him. The questions I would ask him, I don't know how he would handle them, to be honest with you. First of all, who do you say Jesus is? You say you have a relationship in Jesus. Who is Jesus, right? Number one. Yes. Number two, I would like to know, maybe not in this order, but number two, if you're so concerned about the rise of the Antichrist, don't you think that your AI system where you're collecting data on everybody in real time is going to be used like it is in China now with social credit scores, and the Antichrist can take that and make his mark of the beast so no one can buy or sell without it? For a guy that's concerned about the Antichrist, shouldn't you be concerned about something like the data system you're building? How would he answer that, I wonder, Patrick?
I don't know. There seems to be obviously two sides of his coin. One talks about religion, esoteric concepts, etc. Then on the other side of his mind, he's talking about scientific dictatorship. So go figure. By the way, I sent you an article about the advisors that Peter Thiel and Alex Karp have attached to Palantir. It's interesting that he has set his company up with a class of shares that always guarantees the founders, there's only three of them, there's Alex Karp, Stephen Cohen, and Peter Thiel. It always guarantees them control over that company, lock, stock, and barrel, even if they don't own any shares of the company.
I'm gonna download this and send it to myself to play because I think this is one of the videos you just sent me. But he also Palantir is going to have Deborah Birx involved, the scarf lady.
Yes.
Who makes me want to vomit every time I see her.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
I think she's a wicked person.
Well, yes, I would agree. And, it's interesting that they keep their, most of their advisors are secret. You can't find out who they are. I didn't realize that until I did a detailed search. I pressed several search engines to cough up the names of these other boards, the advisory boards that they have. You can't find any name anywhere. They've kept it completely secret. This smacks of the CIA, basically, that they came with that from that in the first place. But Peter Thiel and his cohorts, they run Palantir with a iron fist. Nobody else is allowed to have any decisions except for them.
Okay, so for a guy that's so worried about tyranny, he sounds like a little bit of a corporate dictator, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely he is. Absolutely.
All right, there's more. There's more I'm going to cover on this tonight on Brandon House Live. You're going to be covering it on Technocracy, which airs tonight at 6 p.m. Central, 7 Eastern, right?
Yes.
More tonight, folks.
Yeah.
6 Central, 7 Eastern, Technocracy News. with Logan and Patrick tonight right here at Worldview Tube. His website is technocracynews.com. Thank you, Patrick, for being with us. Thank you, folks, for being with us. Thank you for your support at worldviewfoundation.com. Take care.